Let's find out more about the structure of the bridge by talking to John Pistorino. John, you are a structural engineer. Were you surprised from somebody with your background that hit by the barge into one beam would take it down?
Yes, well, depending upon the span, this reminds me of the Sunshine State Bridge, which I was involved in. But when it says one beam, it doesn't really describe whether it's a beam or it's a column and the type of beam that it is. But, yeah, one beam like that in a critical spot could be without a double safety standards or redundancy, I should say. But, I mean, at this point, I'm surprised that a container ship like that, which is so large, would be able to, even if it's off course, back over in Tampa. You know, we do have some means underwater now, so that if a ship does get out of its own direction, that it can be diverted, that it will divert it away from the critical parts of the bridge, that there's underwater structures that the ship would come across before it actually got to the bridge itself, the critical part of the bridge. So
John,
that's something that they would think of.
John, so the container ship hits that support column, and it was catastrophic. You know, and if we could put the video up of the moment of impact, I'm just surprised that the bridge fell apart at the other support column. It just kind of snapped. It just snapped off. I think the average person looking at this, they always figure, okay, this bridge is so super duper safe, nothing like that would ever happen. But as we look at this right here, you know, there are going to be 1 million people who think about this 100 times today when they drive over a big bridge.
Yeah, well, the structure itself tries to redistribute the loads. So if you lose the critical part of one column, for instance, the structure itself tries to redistribute the loads and then goes to the other column, which has apparently then overloaded that column. That's the nature of the structures.
Right.
But John,
and we're about to see that happen.
Forgive my ignorance,
here.
But why do we design it that way? Why not give a bridge more support? That way, if a beam is hit, that you have some type of backup. Well,
redundancy is what you're talking about, and that was really one of the problems, the big complaints about even the FIU bridge collapse over in Miami at the pedestrian. It was just a smaller bridge, but 6 people were killed there, and there was no redundancy on the design of the bridge.
Is it a money thing, John? Failure. Is it a money thing?
Redundancy.
No, but I'm saying the reason that they don't do it. Yeah.
It could be a money thing, but I think really the design of the redundancy would be something that always should be considered.
You know, John, you referred to the Sunshine Skyway Bridge collapse back in 1980, and I'm curious, so in that incident, you had a freighter, very analogous to this situation, hit a support beam, 35 people lost their life, and there was a big conversation after, how do we fix this? I'm from the local community. It's a tragedy that's weighed on us for decades, really. They raised the height of the bridge, but you just mentioned something I hadn't heard about underwater structures that could divert ships away from the bridge. Tell me more about that.
Well, that was one of the concerns. I was involved in the repair of the bridge, or of the replacement of the new bridge, and that was one of the main considerations, that even though the bridge can only span so far, and so therefore you have underwater structures that take a ship that is out of control for one reason or another, wind or maybe the ship itself loses its steerage, that before it ever gets to the bridge, it's like a diverter, like a railing that would divert the ship to more towards the center of the bridge or away from the critical support.
Yeah, and we have images just for our viewers of Tampa Bay, Florida, and that was 1980, and you can see and compare the two crashes there.
Right.
John, when you do, as a structural engineer, when you do all the calculations as you design a bridge, you got to take into consideration, worst case scenario. is this something that ultimately they do, you know, in the back of their head, they think, okay, let's just say there's an out-of-control container ship. What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, that's what I say, that there normally would be some kind of diversion type of structure that would keep it away from the critical parts of the bridge, especially the column. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what happened here or why that would be the case. But, you know, it's a suspension bridge that can eliminate columns for the most part. But on the other hand, you know, the columns themselves should be on something that actually a ship could not get to, essentially.
Protected. Yeah. All right.
John, thanks so much for joining the program. A lot of insightful knowledge there.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.